We're going to kick this meeting off, and we're certainly going to kick this meeting off by, first of all, celebrating the Grays Harbor County Fair. And Rick is sitting there right there, doing what Rick does best, is talk about Master Gardener stuff to the radio. Rick, any comments on that? I mean, this looks like it was a great interview.
Yeah, well, of course, Cindy came to me and asked me to interview, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to say." And when he stuck the microphone in my face, I just started talking for about 5 minutes, and I didn't shut up once. And I think in that time period.
Rick, I would have been distracted by his tattoos. His ink is pretty, it's pretty out there, isn't it?
It is.
For quite some time, and what he's gone through with his weight loss and his health problems, and of course all of his photography and interviewing like this that he does all over the county, and so I'm very well aware of him. So I wasn't too intimidated.
Well, congratulations on the interview, and congratulations on the overall fair. Right? It was what did E-News say? Was it well over 1,300 people that came through? And we've always said, right, that the Elma Garden is that's our retail front door. I mean, that's where people come through. Think about all the people now that know a little bit more about us, and of course know a little bit more about us because of that new greenhouse, Rhonda, that's sitting there. Did people comment on that? Did people comment on the greenhouse?
They did. Everybody was pretty impressed by the greenhouse because not only does it look like it's going to work, but it's also pretty. It's got graceful lines. That's nice.
Well, congratulations with everybody here, that's for sure.
And where did the bench come from? The new bench?
Scott?
Oh, lovely. That's really cool.
It's beautiful.
Well, tell them about it, Scott.
I'm sorry. What's that?
Tell them about the bench that's in front of the greenhouse.
Well, Steve Valentine brought me an old one and wanted a new one, and the old one was for a pattern. So I built him one. He was the guinea pig. And then I built 4 more for the demo garden. And they roll over and turn into a picnic table.
Wow.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
You're so talented, Scott.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you're such an asset to our group.
Well, I was a carpenter for 35 years, so
he'd better be able to swing a hammer,
Yeah.
We're just glad you've joined us.
Anyway, congratulations. It really is a big deal to have the fair and to have all these people coming through. So congratulations to everybody who participated, everybody who worked on the thing. It's a super big deal. And of course, super congrats for the garden tour and the plant sale, which I think you read about in E-News. And I do want to do a pitch here for Skylar Walker's gardening blog. If you didn't see the tour, or if you want to revisit it,
Lainey, first of all, I asked you to call me back.
She's got almost. Let me just.
I asked you.
There we go. That's okay. I got Chris muted here. It's for sure. It's a reminder to everybody, right? To keep yourself muted if you have a chance here. Otherwise, your personal business will become part of the recording. Hey, but I want to come back to the tour here and Skylar's blog here. She has nearly 100 pictures, covering every garden, right? And including the plant sale, by the way. So she starts off with that. And Mike, you're there sharpening your tools. We've got you all covered, right? Everybody's in there. Terry, any comments? Any comments on the tour? Any reflections?
Well, it was a big success, and the plant sale raised more money. I think it's a record for how much we've raised at our garden tour plant sale. I think I read from Sharon that we took in $3,300 plus. So pretty good. Excellent, actually.
And by the way, that really does, for those of you who participate in the plant sale, I mean, there was a lot of contributions and a lot of very valuable product material that was put out there. So kudos for everybody for coming round on that. And go
I
ahead.
wanted to ask the question, Kelly, how did native plants do at the plant sale?
They actually did very well, and I mean this genuinely. And shout out to Laurie Biddle, who picked up native plants at the Thurston County Conservation District sale. And those plants of Pacific Nine Bark, Black Twinberry, did very well. And by the way, and just again, Laurie's care for them from the February pickup through the July really showed in terms of the quality product that was there. So, and by the way, the other secret tip that many of us did is that we took pictures of the plants as they would be in bloom, as knowing that not a lot is in bloom in the middle of July, right? So the pictures that were there representing what the plants would look like in bloom was a great, motivator for people to take the plunge and buy. So, and oh, by the way, lots of people being introduced to Master Gardeners, right, because of it. So and definitely some recruits to the neighborhood. And we can't thank Barb enough, by the way, Barb Porter enough, right, for the site there. It is a tremendous site that draws obviously thousands of cars going by her place every day. Other comments on the tour? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it was amazing. I was there the day after the plant sale, and it was spotless. Everything was put away, and her garden looked like nothing ever happened, except for her beautiful garden, of course. But thanks to all the volunteers who made that happen, who stayed and made sure that all the plants went to their next resting place. Did you take a lot, Kelly?
I've got them all. They're all resting here. So we're already preparing for next year, folks. Yeah, let's keep it going. Anyway, thanks for all. It was a great July, and a great setup then for the month ahead. And here we are in August. And so we have a board meeting today at 1:00. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome to join the board meeting at 1:00 today. It's the same URL as you have to get into this meeting here. Plant Clinic in Long Beach this Friday from noon till 5 at the Long Beach Farmers Market. That's turned out to be a phenomenal location, by the way. It's just there's people out there. They're interested in plants. They're outside. The weather's great. So we're not only are we talking about people about their plant problems, we're finding new recruits, and we're introducing folks. So if you have these farmers markets, right, we're finding it to be a great opportunity for a plant clinic. We have another plant clinic in Owaco this Saturday, the 16th, and so by the way, anyone interested in some plant clinic hours, come on down. Pacific County Fair is next week. We are just a shadow of the Grays Harbor County Fair relative to size and scope, but we punch above our weight relative to having fun. So setup will be on Tuesday the 19th, and the fair schedules to the 20th through the 23rd. Mike is coordinating all the registrations for volunteer service. Mike, you want to come on and talk about the fair and different thoughts about how it's going to play out?
Sure do. Yeah, I want to thank everybody. We've got a lot of people that have signed up. We've got some openings that are still there. We're using the Give Pulse calendar to make your reservation. And so you go to the Give Pulse calendar page and click on the calendar icon, and then go to the calendar date where you're interested and sign up for it. And so, as Kelly said, Tuesday the 19th will be set up from 10 to noon. And then Sunday the 24th will be takedown from 10 to 11. It's only 1 hour to take down. And we've got shifts there are 4-hour shifts from 10 to 2, 2 to 6, and the last one's 3 hours from 6 to 9. So we've got a little bit of a different timeline for everybody to sign up. And I'm making a master calendar sheet I'll send out to everybody because I'm a visual person, and versus taking a look at the dates and be able to show everybody, well, here's kind of what it looks like. So we'll have a calendar. But yeah, thank you everybody for signing up. Got more to go. Take a look. And if you have any questions, give a call and we'll help you out.
So at the very least, bring your garden tools. Michael put a sharpen on them, and plan to eat some fair food. Right? I mean, there's just there's only so many elephant ears and and other fair food, corn dogs. Right? That you have to have your quota. Right? It's important. It's an American thing.
I have to tell you that Pacific County, I think, has better food than Grace Harbor.
Oh, so now the gauntlet is thrown down. Okay.
No, I'm serious because I've worked at Pacific County Fair too, and they have wonderful food down there.
See, there you go. There's the pitch. So come on down to Menlo and have your fair food. Get your fair food in. And then, of course, mark the calendars for Tuesday, September 2nd. Tuesday, September 2nd for the dedication. This is a big deal. And a big shout out to Rhonda, of course, for the grant writing and for the shepherding the construction of the greenhouse. Rhonda, any comments you want to share as we prepare for this thing?
Mostly that I'm just thrilled that it's finally come to an end. It's been a really long project. I'm excited that we now have not only a beautiful greenhouse that has the capacity to expand, but we also have really good maps that show where all the new drain fields are. It's extensive through the garden. JIT has really mitigated a tremendous amount of water issues there. We have maps that show the electrical. We have all kinds of things that will help us move forward with knowing what's underground in that facility, which is perfect. The dedication, I'm sorry, we kind of have been fudging with the dates, but in the end, it was better to do it after the holiday. I have so many trips coming up and so much family coming to visit me that my schedule was really cramped. So we're going to make it happen on the 2nd of September. I really want it to be short and sweet. This is really just an opportunity for, I'm hopeful that our fair board, our county commissioners, and then those that we receive the grant from will show up, at least a representative of it. And the plan is just to talk a little bit about the history, where we've been, what we're moving toward, and share some beverage and a snack, take some pictures, post it publicly for the public to know what we've done. And then we'll move on to other projects. And I would say at that point, we're going to move to Peggy, and we're going to be all hands on deck helping her with the Ocean Shores facility. I think Grace Harbor and Elma looks pretty doggone good now.
By the way, congratulations for the key thing. I think you mentioned it early on, but the fact that we've addressed drainage issues that have been a perpetual nightmare for the garden. That is a huge thing. It's one of those things we won't be able to see it, right? In terms of it's not as visible.
Actually, that was part of the comments that the contractor made. Was we were talking about the dilemma. The existing greenhouse is at a lower elevation, and we really talked about whether or not to continue that leveling to put the new greenhouse on. And after a lot of looking and site preparation, it was determined the new greenhouse literally is sitting higher. And if you're out there, you'll notice that. But what they did in the process of the excavation and setting the greenhouse higher is that they went ahead throughout the entire facility and took care of all of the problems with drainage. In that way, the new greenhouse could set a little higher, and every bit of water that's coming through now goes into the appropriate drain fields. And it's unfortunate that the existing older greenhouse is lower, but I think with the drain fields around it, it should prevent the puddling at the front door that has been a perpetual problem, and hopefully eliminate the mud that collects inside of it. Because truly the old greenhouse is going to make for a really good potting shed. And all of the accessories from tools to empty pots, all of that stuff can stay in the old one and easily be moved and used throughout the facility without taking the new facility and filling it with stuff. I'm proud of it. I hope everybody out there is proud of it. I think it shows the strength of money that's available to the community and the strength of our organization at pursuing it. And I think we should do more of it as it becomes a necessity.
So again, huge kudos to you for writing the grants on this thing, but also
for supporting me, everybody.
To your last point, though, is that the community then, by making this investment, into the greenhouse, recognizes who we are, what we do, and the value we provide.
Yep.
So, kudos to all of us for being known and being recognized in this way.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Rhonda. It seemed to me that at the fair this year, there was a lot of more interest in people signing up to become Master Gardeners. We had a lot of people, and I think it was because of how the garden looked and just the presentation that we were able to give, that we all worked together as a group, and by golly, it works out. It was great.
Super kudos for everyone here. Okay, reminder, coming up also in September is the state conference. It's virtual, right? It is virtual. It's the very end of September. No excuse for not getting your continuing education hours in, right? No excuse. Erin, do you want to have any comments, any thoughts?
Just a reminder that Friday morning will be the State Foundation's annual meeting. They'll be electing officers for 2026. And then they'll go into the regular program. That's all I can think of.
And of course, the value of registering for this, right, and putting the fees in is that once you have this, you'll have access to all the recordings, right, through, I believe, February, right?
Yeah, February.
Yeah, so again, you could save up some of those recordings and start building some CE hours for 2026 if you're so inclined. So yeah, this is an investment.
There's enough. You could actually get both years worth of CE if you time it right.
There you go. Okay. So again, at MG Learns, mastergardenerfoundation.org, right? Any other questions, ping Erin. And a Tapio moment, courtesy of Mike. Mike, I wanted to recognize you sent me this link about this LA greenhouse full of the world's rarest plants. Now, mind you, this YouTube video, he's a pretty salty language guy. Okay, so this is the video it needs to be rated R for language. Okay, but it's compelling. It in the middle of LA. There's some exotic stuff, and he goes into details. He goes into details about how these plants were collected, and the challenges and dangers that these botanists went through to collect these materials and to keep them going here. So I think that instead of trying to remember the URL, I missed, do a search when you're on YouTube for this hidden LA greenhouse. Mike, do you have any comments about this? How do you even come across this?
Oh, goodness sakes, I can't. It was just through one of the blogs that I frequent, and it came on there, and I had to click a couple times to be able to find it. And once I went through it, it was this major aha moment where he has plants that are the only ones in the world, the only kind that there are. And he talks about the temperatures inside there, where it's in the greenhouse in certain parts are 130 degrees, and that's where some of the plants thrive. They have to have that. He loses 20% of the plants because it just doesn't duplicate the natural environment they're in. And it's just fantastic, some of the plants that he has that he'll tell you, there's only like one or two other people in the world that have this cactus. and it's just spectacular collection that he has. And it's just amazing when you watch the video. You want to talk about redneck engineering, where they've got clay pipe stacked on top of clay pipe. And in my mind, I figure, California's earthquake country, and why it doesn't all come tumbling down, but he's got blocks on top of blocks, and it's just amazing the infrastructure that it takes, but just a fantastic read. And again, he drops, I counted, and there's like 4 F-bombs is really all that there is, if you want to say all. It really, but anyways, it brings up, it's just a great eye opener for what's out there and the curators of the rarest plants on the earth.
So check it out, right? And don't let your children anywhere near the video here. Okay, program updates and so forth. I want to let's get into a bunch of announcements and any other thoughts from anyone here at announcements, news, anything to share.
Well, I can share a little bit about training. We have about 25 applicants already, and it's still another 2 weeks until application window closes. So Wendy and I are going through the process of evaluating the applications, interviewing the applicants, getting the background checks done, all that kind of stuff. And I think just talking to some of these applicants, they are excited. They are, really engaged, and they really, the enthusiasm is makes me excited about training. And we've got quite a spread. There's probably a third of the applicants are Pacific County. So that'll be we'll have a good group down there. The one struggle we're having is meeting space for the in-person training sessions. My intention was to do the first training session with all the trainees in one place. And we were hoping to find a place. Well, we were going to do the Holcomb Library, but the Holcomb Library apparently is booked for the entire winter. So, and so is Aberdeen for all the dates that we wanted. So we're looking for training space, preferably in Holcomb or Aberdeen, or more that general area. If anybody knows of inexpensive to free training space that's not where we're not going to freeze in January, email me, let me know. At this point, our backup is like the Monty City Hall building where we met earlier this year with Dan and Tessa. So that's a backup because it's fairly inexpensive, but it's not as central as we'd like it to be. I think that's all I can think of right now as far as training stuff. So
okay, we'll get you back. Other announcements, other news. That's it. Aaron's comment is actually it's a good segue, right? To remind ourselves about who we are and how we come all together here, right? Because obviously as Master Gardeners, we are committed to WSU Extension's programs and to abide by the research-based, information and sharing that is our obligation. But as a foundation, we come together, right, to raise money to support that program. And as we all know, we are one of very few foundations, very few two-county organizations here that are fully dependent upon ourselves to support the program. So kudos to everyone here for the effort and the contributions that they all go through on. And by the way, it's a quick heads up too, by the way, is that we'll be opening up nominations for 2026 officers in the next month or so, right? Because our bylaws say that in October is when we elect our officers for the following year. And so all of the positions, right, are open for recruitment here. So it's an opportunity for everyone to step forward. And a reminder, everybody, of course, to record your hours, right? And how are we doing, Aaron? Do you have a sense for, are we keeping up?
Wendy's been more focused on Give Pulse, but if anybody is having trouble with the changes that came up last month, get a hold of us and we can help walk you through it. We haven't heard anything from anyone, so we're kind of assuming that no one's having trouble, but I kind of have trouble believing that. I mean, it's fairly intuitive, but there are a couple of quirks that aren't at all intuitive. So if anybody has any troubles, let us know. But yeah, it's really important to get your hours in because it's what indicates that you are covered by L&I. If for some reason you are injured while working as a master gardener, but also it also demonstrates our impact in the community, and it's can have an impact on whether or not we get grants in the future. Because we can have numbers that say this is what we're doing in our communities and this is how many hours our people are putting into the education that we're giving.
So a quick reminder, and of course, speaking from experience, right? If you don't keep up to it, you're going to end up forgetting. You're going to have no idea. You knew you did a lot of work, but when did I do it? How many hours did I do it? Right? So keep up to it just for your own sanity. Okay. Okay. Comments from OSU in terms of August to-dos. This is the time to start thinking about, your winter gardens. Termites are going to be active here coming up soon once we get once the rains start coming, which I believe are going to start even sometime this weekend. And best time to water early morning, right? Water the soil rather than the leaves, water deeply and infrequently. It certainly is takes no reminder about thinking about watering given the heat we're having this week here. Interesting comment about camellias, right? Even as established as camellias are, right? This is the time when they're working up the energy to support new flowering for next year. Hanging baskets, absolutely, are drying out very fast. I'm having a real challenge keeping my hanging baskets going here. Lawn clippings, don't compost, right? If you've got that weed and feed, right, or herbicide. So ensure that what you're putting into your compost pile, right, is appropriate for, the kind of compost you want to generate. Okay. Management of your activities here, lots of opportunities for pruning. Even though as hot as it is, right, this is a great opportunity to start pruning and thinking about ensuring you've got a clean garden. If you remember the comment, the dead, dying, and diseased, right? Is the right time to be jumping into pruning almost at any time. And of course, time to get your winter garden going, right? Midsummer plantings, fall crops, right? Boy, there's so much that we can still keep going. And now that your soil temps are high, because of the summer, it's a great time to get the seeds in and to go for germination. So we often don't think about starting a fall garden in the middle of August, but holy cow, it's August is hurtling through. Okay. Pest monitoring, chemical controls only when necessary after reading the label. The label is the law. There's a couple comments here in terms of particular pest that we're told to be on the lookout for, by the way. Longhorn beetle, the emerald ash borer, which we've talked about here, and the spotted lanternfly. So reminder, this is the time at which we can see these little guys. And boy, if we see them, let the state know. Because this is significant, right? And that we track these down. And a quick reminder for everybody, of course, is to check out the website, the Invasive Species Council website, and to see the lists that are there. Okay.
Spotted lanternfly.
Yeah, is that right, Lou? You've got your own friends there.
Spotted lanternfly.
Yeah, there you go.
Never seen that.
Well,
they're really pretty, but ooh.
Yeah. Okay, soil testing, and by the way, a quick plug here for it. I'm a big birder down here, and at Cornell Lab of Ornithology is kind of the place in the globe, right, that talks about birds and thinks about birds. And Doug Tallamy's doing a free seminar coming up on September 9th. And and of course, Doug teaches environmental science at the University of Delaware. He's a rock star in our world here for, his work on environmentalism. And so he's got this is going to be it's going to be great. It's going to be live. So just if you can't find if you can't remember the URL, just go to the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, go to their website, and do a search for Doug Tallamy and this September 9th live event. So it's free, and so yeah, all kinds of opportunities. Any other announcements? Any other comments? Anything else for the good of the order? Because we are ready to introduce our featured speaker, Laurie Williams, who joins us all the way from Mason County. How hot is it there in Mason County, Laura?
It's getting warm. It's not too different than you are.
So, Laurie, thank you again for joining us. I've given you want to take over and share your screen? There you go. So again, Laurie joins us, and I wanted her to share the presentation she gave so eloquently at the Home and Garden Show, so that we all have a chance to see it. And it's just, there's no question that that it was a big hit, right? At the garden show, and succulents are something that I don't think we talk enough about it, and work with them enough. So Laurie, take it away.
Great. Are you able to hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine.
All right. So before I begin, I just wanted to mention a little bit about myself. I am helping with the community to help the Pioneer School District restore their garden and start garden programs. And because of that, I became a certified school garden educator because I knew nothing about plants. And so I wanted to make sure I knew how a garden could best serve student learning. And so I became a master gardener, got trained in square foot gardening. One of the initiatives that I'm working on right now is with Mary Dessel, who all of you are probably aware is an entomologist specialist. And we're helping to start a program to help the community become Mason bee fostering friends, where they foster a Mason bee house, and the Master Gardeners help to make that simple. So if you're interested in the future of hearing about that, Mary and I would love to share that. With the school garden, one of the difficulties is a vegetable garden is so hard to keep up during the year. So the elementary STEM teacher and I were talking about how to help make a more perennial garden, and your garden is a model garden. And so she's going to be taking a look for about the second or third time at your garden, how you label everything, how you arrange things. And so I just really want to thank the Master Gardeners of your county, because you've really created something special for everyone. All right, the world of succulents. I love succulents. My project to become a Mason gardener was with succulents. I am not an expert, but it was the one plant that I had success in keeping alive. So this was my introduction. When I was a friend gave me this tiny little aeonium, and it looks small. And with that, when I planted it, it soon became quite large, probably a foot in diameter. And from that one plant, it quickly multiplied. And so I've got beautiful, huge aeoniums that I bring into my greenhouse in the winter and I put outside in the summer. So that was my whole start. So in this session, I'm going to talk briefly about what are succulents and what are some commonly grown succulents, and especially focusing on the Crussulaceae and how to propagate succulents, but it applies to most of them. And in the background, you'll see the autumn joy sedum as well. So in a classroom, if I give this picture to the third grade children and I say, oh, our car's broken down in the desert, it's so hot, it's dry, I'm thirsty, there's no one around, how am I going to get anything to drink? These little third graders will all have their hands up and they'll be saying, there's a cactus is filled with water. And this is a huge saguaro, and it holds a lot of water. These plants can survive for months and up to a couple years without any water. They're amazing. They are succulents, one of the biggest ones. And succulents can be huge or they can be absolutely tiny. Different colors, sizes, shapes. And that's what I love about succulents. There's a lot of variety, but in general, these are juicy plants. They store water in their stems and leaves. They can store water for weeks or months or years. And there are a lot of succulent families, 50 to 60 succulent families. And I'm only going to focus on about 8 of them that are very, very common. And then I'm going to spend the most time on that bottom one in yellow that includes stonecrop, jade, sedum, etc. And that's the one I'm going to spend the most time in talking about propagating them.
You know, Laurie, just to jump in, it was interesting because of all the plants in the plant sale, right? You know, we really had trouble selling succulents. It's amazing how underappreciated the succulents are. And we had some great, you know, some great specimens there that were available. But you got to help, you need to help us appreciate so we can, you know, get the buzz on for these guys.
Yes. And because there's generally not that knowledge about how do you keep them alive, because they store so much water in their leaves, they generally get overwatered. They don't need that much water. They love water. So a lot of people don't know about propagating them. And then what do you do when you get all these succulents and babies? What can they be used for? So I'll talk about that as well. But in general, when we talk about propagation, of course, we want to have clean tools so we don't spread disease. And I'm not going to spend time on the type of soil, but briefly in the store, you can buy a cactus mix, but it's so expensive. And a cactus mix is generally made of something organic that can help hold nutrients, but it has to be light and drain well because these succulents don't want a ton of water. That's the number one thing that will kill them is overwatering. So I like to make my own by combining peat moss and something non-organic like perlite. Other people might use sand or pumice or crushed granite instead of perlite. Instead of peat moss, you can use potting mix, cocoa coir. So there's any combination that works really well. And the one note at the bottom between perlite and vermiculite, vermiculite tends to hold water. Perlite doesn't. And that's why perlite is usually used in these cactus mixes. And then when I talk about propagating, seeds are super slow. So I'm not going to be talking about seeds. And you might hear me say the word babies, chicks, offset, pups. Those are all different terms for the little babies that grow off of the mother hen. And I'll be referring to easy ways to propagate. So using division with the roots. Cutting off a leaf, a stem, cutting off the head of it, head chopping it. So these are some different things I'll talk about through this presentation. So now back to the 8 common families. One of them is that Agaveaceae family, which has the agave, yucca. Those are some of the most common plants in this category. Those are succulents. Succulents is a huge, huge umbrella of plants. The Aizoaceae, And one of the most common here would be on the far right, the Delosperma, the ice plant. And I planted a bunch of these. I thought they were just beautiful, and my conditions weren't quite right, and we were just a little bit too cold, and so they're more of an annual where I am. Aloaceae, that's your aloe, your haworthia. These are super easy to grow. They're used for all sorts of different medicinal purposes, and they're very, very easy to propagate through stem cutting, leaf cuttings. Epinaceae. The most common, besides plumeria, is on the far right, this vinca or periwinkle. So when I first started getting into plants and I had my yard, I went to the nursery and I said, I need a good ground cover. And they recommended vinca. And as we're finding out, vinca is very invasive. The roots are just deep. They're horrendous to try to get out once you've grown it. And so it took over my yard. And I thought, all right, I'm just not going to water it. It'll die. And it didn't die. And now I realize it's because it's in the succulent family. It stores a lot of water in its leaves and stems. So now I know to stay away from vinca. It is a perennial. It can survive great drought conditions. Bromeliaceae, these are your air plants. And I bought some air plants because I was so curious as to how they propagated. The air plants don't want to be touching soil and the wetness, they'll die. So I like to put them in nice little fancy bowls and containers without any soil. I just gather them all, put them in a bowl of water once a week and just let them set for 10 minutes or an hour if I forget. And they're the simplest things to take care of. And one of the things that fascinates me is it starts growing these little pups and babies. And once it starts growing that, you could either leave it and let it grow larger, or you can twist each one off and have it become its own little air plant. And then the whole cactus family. They could be large or small, and some of them you could twist off that little leaf and it will start a new one, or many of them will get little babies or pups around it and you can twist those off and start some new ones. This whole family of Euphorbiaceae, the euphorbias, I planted a euphorbia in my garden, my raised bed, and it just took over. I didn't realize that some of them can be invasive. Some of them, the sap can be toxic. And so I removed them. They're succulents. They did wonderful in the drought. They're beautiful, so you might love them. But I found that it really took over my small little raised bed area. And now my favorite family is the Crassulaceae. It has so many varieties of Crassula, to the hens and chicks that you will find outside, the sempervivums. It's got all sorts of jade plants, all sizes and shapes. And the common jade is in this family as well. And this is so easy to propagate by cutting the stem, letting the stem tip dry out and callus over, and plopping it back into soil. So you can easily get many from one plant, or you can grow it nice and large with all sorts of branches. And you get all of your kalanchoes. So this one on the left, and look at all those little babies and pups. And this is also called the mother of thousands and the mother of millions, because as each one of these falls off, or you can remove it, or you can leave it on the stem, it's going to multiply like crazy. Each one will become a big plant in quite quickly. On the right is a paddle plant. Each of those leaves can develop into new plants. and the beautiful indoor kalanchoe, easy to propagate as well. So this Crassulaceae family also has the Graptopetalum, some that are plumper like the Pachyphytum. So they just come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and rosettes. Some of them are cold hardy. So when you hear sedum, I was always confused about, is sedum a succulent, or all succulents sedum? Sedum or stonecrop are succulents. And so are those hens and chicks, the sempervivum. They're all succulents, but these ones love being outdoors in our climate all year round. And then you have some that are used to the drier, warmer climates on the right, your Echeveria, your rosettes, and those larger aeoniums. So the ones that like the warm climates, right now they're outside. So I take them outside after the main rains stop in May or June, and then I bring them inside before it turns cold, usually in September. So let's take a look at some of the sedum, the cold hardy, stonecrop. These tend to be mat forming. Some of them are trailing. Some of them are large and upright, like the one on the right, your autumn joy. And the thing that's great is that these are easy to propagate. So one is by division. And an easy way to do it is just take your shovel, dig up a clump like in the middle. On the right, you just divide it into different sections and then replant each section, and they will grow into more clumps and spread. If some of the leaves or stems fall off, just keep them on your soil. So take a look at that middle picture. The stem fell off, or else you can just cut them off. And if you look closely, you'll see all those roots. Well, if it's sitting on the soil, those roots will find its way into the soil. And look at the far right picture. Some of those little leaves pop off. So now you've got the stem cutting with the roots, and those little leaves can eventually grow the roots as well. You can lay them on the soil if it's a stem cutting, or you can also just pop them into the soil. So in the middle, you can make a little hole, you can plop them in, or you can just lay them on top of the soil, and those roots will find its way in. So they're very easy to multiply. Here are your sempervivum, your hens and chicks. And there are different ways to propagate these, by division, by stem cuttings. So they can be dug out, and if you take a look at the far right, you see that they might have little roots when you divide them, and you can plant that. You can also just twist them off or cut the stem. So on the far left, you'll see that little stem going from the mother hen to the chick. You could just cut it, or you can twist them off. And then you can plant them. So one of the main things, though, is if you cut the stem, then just let that stem callus for a few days. Keep it out of the wet soil. Keep it away from getting wet. Let it callus over. Then you can put it in dry soil. Now, one of the things about all sempervivum, your hens and chicks that are outside, these are monocarpic. So when they start to flower, that mother hen, this beautiful mother hen, starts to flower, which is beautiful. It's also called the death bloom, which means that mother will die after the bloom. All sempervivum are monocarpic. Once that big mother flowers, it will die. But look at all of those chicks around it and babies. It has multiplied like crazy, and they will soon become larger like the mothers as well. So at first I saw it bloom and I thought, oh, I'm going to lose this plant. And then I looked all around and I saw that there were a lot of babies growing in the yard. So some species of the kalanchoe, aloe, or monocarpic, most of those large aeoniums, like in those first pictures that I showed, are monocarpic. It starts to get this stem and flower. Some people can try cutting off that little flower at first and maybe they can save it. But all of these are going to be producing some babies that you can keep going. Most of the succulents, however, are polycarpic. When they bloom, no problem. The bloom will die. The plant will keep on going for years. So Echeveria, these are the ones I just absolutely love. I bring them into my greenhouse during the winter or inside the house. In the summer, they're outside. I give them more of the morning sun, that afternoon, lot of intense heat. Many of them don't tend to enjoy. So I do give them a lot of the morning sun or filtered sunlight. So the Echeveria have these rosette shapes, and an easy way to propagate them is on the right. Just take a stem cutting. Cut off when they get the babies and the pups. Just separate them. Some may have roots, and you can just plant the one with the roots. And if on the right you see it might have a few little hairs. But if it doesn't have hairs, no big deal. Just let it callus over for a few days, and then I just plop it right back into dry soil. And I don't worry about watering that soil for at least a couple weeks, because it's going to take 2-3 weeks for it to even start to develop roots. Until that time, it's getting all that moisture from the leaves and all the nutrients from the leaves. And then you can plant it, whether it has roots or not. And it takes a little bit of patience. Again, it may be a process of weeks before the roots start to develop, or months, but eventually most will. And so you can see from the pups, I just cut the stem, plop it into dry soil, and then I just leave them. And I don't worry about watering them for several weeks. And then the one main thing is they enjoy water, but they don't want soggy soil. And the soil has to dry out completely in between waterings. And that's why I love them, because they thrive on neglect. So leaf cuttings. Gently wiggle, and I like to start at the base. Gently wiggle a leaf up and down, side to side, until it finally starts to cleanly come off the stem. And we need to get that whole leaf cleanly off the stem. And the reason is, where it connects to the stem, that's where the most stem cells are, or the meristematic tissue. And those stem cells are undifferentiated. So they're thinking, okay, shall I grow leaf, turn into a leaf, a stem, or roots? And so that's the place where it's going to most easily start to grow the roots. And that's the place also where it will heal over the most. So take a look at the one on top where I tore it. This won't propagate easily. That big chunk is like a huge wound that's going to take a long, long time to heal if it does. And it doesn't have as many of the stem cells there than if it is cleanly removed from the stem. And again, let the end callus for a few days. It's unlike when you put a carnation in water. You need that water to suck up and keep that flower fresh, because carnations and roses, they don't have a lot of water in their petals. Succulents store a lot of water. So if you plop it right into water, it's going to suck it up and tend to rot. And it can also absorb the pathogens. So I pulled off a lot of the leaves, and look at all the new plants I'm going to be able to get. I plant the main one, and then I just place the leaves on top of the soil. And again, it doesn't need water for weeks, a month or more, until those roots start to form. So here's an echeveria waiting to be propagated. I start at the base, I wiggle, 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 wiggle those leaves, and I plant the mother, the main part, and look at all of the new plants I'm going to be able to get from that one rosette. And I like to just place it on top of the soil until I see the roots. I don't need to spray it. I don't need to water the soil. You can throw these leaves on your counter. You can throw them on a frisbee. You can throw them on the dry soil. Again, they're getting the water and the nutrients from the leaf. Any dry area will do. And I like to give them a little bit of a filtered light, and I like to protect them from extreme weather. Once the roots start to develop, that's when I'll mist the roots. Or I'll plant it in soil and then start watering the soil. And so on the right, that succulent is now growing into a rosette. So the roots form first. They find their way into the soil if you haven't planted it. It's getting all the nutrition and the water from the leaf. So you can see the leaf is slowly turning yellow. It's starting to wither, and the rosette starts to form. And here's another picture of the leaves first forming those roots and the rosette. And I lay it on top of the soil. The roots find their way in, or you can also plant them in. And I just leave those leaves on until they either fall off or they wither back so much I can gently pull them off. Now here's the big aeonium. My first year, I was pulling off the leaves, wiggling them off, laying them in a dry place, and none of them developed the roots. And then I started reading, oh, they don't really propagate well by leaf cuttings, but they do propagate well by pups, offsets, and stem cuttings. So sometimes I might wiggle off a leaf, and where it was wounded, you've got those stem cells, and on the right with the arrow, it grew a new pup. Here's some others that grow those, that grow the pups, and another picture as well. So sometimes I might just wiggle off some leaves, and then it'll grow some new babies, some new pups. Other times, if you take a look at the right, the down below this long stem, it's gotten really leggy. I'll just cut off the stem, let it callus over, plop it in soil, and it'll continue to grow because it's got the water in the leaves and the nutrients, and where I cut it, it'll callus over and then start to grow new roots. So again, this one, it'll start to grow lots of little pups. I can wiggle off each one, place them on dry soil. They'll start to grow roots, and then they'll keep growing. And I don't have to worry about watering them right away for weeks until they do grow new roots. and then that mother plant will continue to grow. So here's the example. One on the left, there's a pup. You can just snip off the pup. You can wiggle it off. You can twist it off. It doesn't have any roots in the middle. So I just let it callus over for a few days. Or on the right, I just set it right on top of dry soil. And again, I don't worry about misting it. I don't worry about watering it because it'll take a few weeks or more for the roots to grow. And you'll know when it needs water, when those leaves start to shrivel a bit, then you might know, okay, the roots are growing. I need to now give the soil a little bit of water to plump it back up. So again, the aeonium, this one was getting tall and leggy. So if you look at that middle picture, it was a small little stem. It was starting to tip over. So on the right, all I did was to cut off those roots. Let that stem callus a few days. And then I popped it right back into dry soil. And I didn't feel the need to water it right away. I waited a couple of weeks or even a month, and then you can water the soil. So easy. Now, head chopping is the latest one that I've been finding out about. So on this one, it's just getting kind of big. I just chop off the head. You can use a fishing line and wrap it around the head and pull it, or you can use your scissors and chop it off. And the bottom part, you can pull off some of the leaves, wiggle them off carefully. The leaves will start growing roots and turning into new rosettes. But the places where you pull off the leaves, you've got stem cells on that stem, and chances are you're going to have new succulents growing where you pull off the leaves. So the bottom part, I like to wiggle off several of those leaves around the plant because it'll produce many of them. And then the top part, I just plant. So here's another echeveria that's ready to be propagated. So I just chop off the head. On the right, the bottom part, I'll wiggle off some of those leaves. And where I wiggle those leaves off, I'll grow new rosettes. And on the left side, you'll see the head. And that head, I can let it callus for a few days, or I just plop it right on top of soil, dry soil, and wait. Don't give it any water until it starts to develop those roots. So here's another succulent growing all sorts of babies and pups. And again, I can wiggle them off, cut them off, plant them. Now, there's some funny looking succulents. And the fun thing is, if we don't know what to do with them, sure, you can Google it, but let's experiment. So I had no idea. I couldn't wiggle these leaves off very easily. So I just chopped the head off, and it gave me these really weird, huge leaf that circled the stem. But after a month, I saw a new succulent growing from the stem, a new baby. And here's another experiment. I just chopped off the top, pulled off some leaves. I didn't know if succulents would grow from a stem, and it did. Or on the top left, I just planted a leaf back into the dry soil, and it started to grow. On the right, I had no idea that each of those mother of thousands would grow individually. I just put a leaf on the soil and it started to multiply. Here are a bunch of stems, leaves pulled off, getting more succulents. So it's fun to play. It's not always successful. I lose succulents, but I'm growing many, many more than I lose. So from one comes many really quickly. And here again, you can see my trays of succulents, and my husband says, "What in the world are you doing with all these succulents now? I just don't have the heart yet to throw away the leaves." So the fun part is being creative. What can I do with so many succulents that I'm growing for free? Because they don't take much water. They just take a little bit of space. So you can make different kind of planter boxes. Or with an old holiday wire wreath, I planted some succulents. And then in the summer, I chop off my aeonium at the stem, plop it into soil in the middle, and I have a real interesting arrangement. On the left is my husband's baby shoe that was just packed away in a box. So I took it out, put a little soil, put in the succulents, and they don't need much water very often. So it's been surviving it's been what, 4 or 5 years now? And you can find all sorts of creative containers. My favorite is in the fall. In October, I like to buy those little mini pumpkins. And here's one that's orange, but I also love the ones that are white. I glue on some moss, so you can super glue it. You could spray an adhesive, and one of your master gardeners said there's also a floral adhesive. Instead of a glue gun when you might risk burning yourself, she recommended this floral adhesive. And so first I put on the moss or sphagnum moss, and then I just cut the succulents. Don't even wait for roots. I glue the succulents onto the moss, and it doesn't matter if you cover the stem, the roots will still grow into the moss. And then you can decorate it. So it makes great table decorations in October, November. If I use the white ones, and I can add a little holly in December. And as long as that pumpkin doesn't get punctured or wet, it is a wonderful vessel. So usually in the spring, those little mini pumpkins are still going strong. The succulents have rooted into the moss. And if I don't want to keep that little mini pumpkin, I just lift off the moss with all the succulents, and then I put it in a pot, and the succulents keep growing. So it makes a really cheap decoration, and I don't lose my succulents. On the right, I just took some wire and I put some of the lichen that I found outside and made it look like a bird's nest. On the left was one that I had found, a bird's nest that I had found that hadn't been used for years, and then planted some succulents in. In this picture, I had so many. My son got married in May. So I potted up a couple of dozen plants and just filled them with the succulents and gave them away at the wedding. This was the succulent plant that I showed you earlier with a lot of the babies. I just cut off each of those babies and that mother plant because a few days before the wedding, my son's fiance said, she was living in Germany at the time, and she said, "Oh, I haven't ordered a bouquet." I said, "No problem. We've got a succulent theme. Cut off these succulents. I put a wire through the stem, floral wire, just wrapped it with the floral tape. And now I've got my succulent flowers. Then I just popped in some fresh flowers the day of the wedding, and she had her bouquet. And the beautiful thing is, afterwards, I was able to deconstruct it. Of course, the fresh flowers, I set those aside to dry upside down. But all of these succulents, I took the wire out, plopped them back in soil. And a couple months later, they've grown their roots. I haven't lost a single one of them, and they're going strong. My son's little boutonniere, I was able to make a few days in advance. And then a couple weeks later, I took a look and it still looked exactly the same. And you can deconstruct it and still save the succulent. Made a wreath. So we just took some grapevines and put on sphagnum moss or moss from outside, cut the succulents, either glued them on or used the florist pins, and made these succulent wreaths. And so I can make these wreaths weeks, months in advance. I still have a succulent wreath outside that still looks the same after how many months. At the wedding, just got some fresh flowers, cut off my aeonium, and then plopped it into another floral basket to keep with the succulent theme. So here you can see some of the wreaths that were made and how succulents were just used to amend some of the flowers. So I love succulents. It's a wonderful world of succulents. It's a huge, huge umbrella of plants ranging from the saguaro down to tiny little plants, your agave, your sedum outside, your sempervivum, your autumn joy, your echeveria. They're beautiful. You can neglect them a lot. The worst thing is giving them too much attention and too much water, and that's why I love the succulents. They're juicy. They store that water in their stems and leaves for a long time. And there are a lot of succulent families, a lot of variety. They're easy, they're happy plants, and you can create so many projects from them. So enjoy. Oh, the one on the left, the autumn joy. I've tried propagating them through division, dig them out. That works beautifully. Take a look at those leaves. I could wiggle off the leaves, plop them in dry soil. And I did that with 3 leaves, 2 of them rooted. They're growing into beautiful plants. I did lose one. And you can also do it with stem cuttings as well. So enjoy. There are always books on succulents that you can look at. And to me, the best is just experiment. Have fun with it. So thank you very much.
Holy cow, Laurie. I mean, there's a lot of information you passed on. By the way, I'm going to invite everyone to share questions and comments here, but is there a particular type of day or a type of year you like to propagate? Is there a particular time of the year you think it's best to propagate?
There are certain times when, and the succulents are all different when they're going through their growth spurt. Some grow more in the spring, summer, others are more dormant. And so I just sort of look up each one, but I really don't pay that much attention to it. So I just pull off leaves throughout the year. And sometimes, and they'll take a long time before they start growing the roots. Other times they may start growing roots in just a few weeks. So I'm not that attentive and serious and professional about when I propagate these. I just go by, if it's getting too big, I start pulling off leaves. Or if it's the aeonium and it's getting too tall and leggy, I just cut off the stem wherever it is and plop it back into the soil, and then I'll have smaller plants.
By the way, it was a key comment I think you made about making sure that these leaves and these cuttings dry, that they callus out before you put them in. That's I think a key tip that we probably all, we're probably freaking out, right, about how do we get these plants back into the soil as soon as possible.
And what amazed me are on the the bottom, the big aeonium or these beautiful echeveria. I will cut off the stem or head chop them, and I'll think, oh my goodness, I've got to start misting. And then I remember, relax. They have to callus sometimes for days, sometimes it might be a week or two. And then it's going to take a long time for them to grow new roots. They have to callus over first, then grow the roots. They're getting everything they need from the leaves, the nutrients, and the water. And it's only when those roots start coming out do we need to then start giving the plants some water.
Now for the monocarpics, how do you clean them up after they bloom? I mean, do you actually just cut them out? I mean, the dead bloom?
Yeah, I'll just pick the whole thing out. I like the blooms. I know it's got the babies and pups around it. So I let it go through that cycle. Some people might want to collect the seeds. I don't do the seeds. It takes a long time. So I just let the whole thing flower, go to seed, and maybe the seeds might drop also into the ground and naturally create some more. And then once the mother hen has totally died down, I can just leave it. It'll feed the soil. Or if you don't like that look, you can just pick out the dead plant as well.
I noticed a lot of your starts were in 4-inch pots, right? But obviously then obviously they grow large. Is there a particular recommendation in terms of the size of pot, the size of container you want to have, given the size of the plant?
Yes, some of them take so long to get large. They're very, very tiny. I might get a little a seed tray, and it might be 6 by 6, and I might just start cutting off a bunch of stems and plopping them into soil all right next to each other because I don't want them to take up much room. So I will crowd a little tray like this with a lot of succulents. And then when they grow, some of them I might put into just a little 2-inch pot and let them grow, because some of them grow very, very slowly. Others of them I keep in that tray. They start to grow leggy. Maybe they don't have enough sun or whatever. No big deal. I just cut them, the stem again, and plop them back into the soil. So I am a very lazy gardener when it comes to succulents, and I experiment a lot. And because I get so many, then I feel comfortable about cut them off. They're too leggy, plop them back in the dry soil so they're down low, and see what happens. And most of the time they do perfectly fine.
Questions, comments for Laurie? This has been a super, super presentation, Laurie. Where do you purchase? Are there sources for some interesting succulents that you would recommend?
Well, the stores, like Walmart or nurseries, they have some of the more common ones, and those are great. If you want something like the one in the middle, and I don't know for sure if that's an aeonium or echeveria, maybe an aeonium, I might go online and take a look at Google some colorful succulents or colorful aeonium, colorful echeveria, and I might splurge and get 1 or 2 from Etsy or other places, other growers. And then I only do it for the purpose of I want to experiment and try to propagate it and see how successful I am. But then I find I'm sort of a lazy gardener. And if they don't propagate very easily, then I go back to the standard ones that do propagate.
When that Brenda's putting a note about the pot shed, up in Grayland.
But a lot of stores have succulents. Your brother's nursery has a lot of succulents. Each year, Costco will have a huge pots of succulents for quite very inexpensive, because oftentimes you might find one succulent for $2-3. Other times you can buy these big pots at your nurseries at McClendon's or Walmart or Costco, and they're just stuffed with succulents. And that's a good way to get a lot. Just divide them into their own little pots or start pulling off the leaves, and pretty soon you're going to have a ton of them. And that would be an easy way also for your Master Gardener group to be able to get a lot for, your plant sales. It does take patience. They do take a while to grow and to grow to a significant size, but you'll find pretty soon that you'll have more than what you know what to do with them.
Questions, comments for Laurie? We have an expert here. Let's take advantage of it.
Got a good soil recipe? A ratio?
You'll see a variety on the internet. I sometimes just take my regular potting mix and I use 1-to-1, like 1 part potting mix or 1 part perlite, 1 part peat moss, and 1 part perlite. So sort of half and half. Other people will use coco coir, 1 part or 2 parts to 1 part perlite. Some will add sand and perlite. I find that I just get the huge bags of perlite. That's why I just use the perlite, because I can get the huge bags quite inexpensive. And then I use whatever I have on hand. If it's outdoors with your sedum and your stone crop, then I just plop it into the garden soil. And if it's not well draining, I'll just add some sand to it, which will help it drain a little bit more. If it's in containers, I just tend to use the peat or coco coir or potting mix, and then just add in some more perlite to keep it well draining. So I don't follow any recipe really hard and fast, because you'll see the recipes will vary a lot from half and half, half organic, half of your sand or perlite or granite, and others will say just 1/3 of the perlite's fine. Some will say 1/4 of the perlite. So just as long as it has something that can be well draining. But the cactus mix is so expensive. It's going to be much cheaper to make your own.
Yeah, thank you.
Terry, you have your hand up.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for the information about vinca, because I've been trying to get rid of a patch of vinca and was kind of surprised because of how tenacious it is, but then how it does survive a real dry, droughty area. So that was great information. Thank you.
Yeah, and I have a hard time getting rid of my vinca now. I wish I hadn't put it in. It's so pretty. And if I had it in a contained area, it would be so beautiful, but it's not. It's taken over.
Holly asked questions about the aeoniums, and what when she's concerned about brown leaves that become prevalent.
With my aeonium, if I have it in the hot afternoon sun and I haven't hardened it off well, and it's like your vegetable garden, taking it from one environment to another without gently introducing it, then I find I get more of that sun scorching. It's like it got a sunburn. But if it gets the brown leaves, all I do is take off the brown leaves. And I just figure those leaves have run its natural cycle, and then I've still got enough of my green leaves. And then this aeonium on the bottom picture on the left, that's starting to get leggy. So I would tend to just chop it off, take off those bottom leaves, and let it callus, or else I just plop it back into some dry soil.
And you always recommend just wiggling the leaves off as opposed to for using a sharp blade to trim
Yeah.
them off.
And aeoniums don't propagate well, tend not to propagate well by the leaves, but on the top, like the echeveria, I wiggle, wiggle, wiggle because, and some wiggle off very easily. But that way it breaks off from the stem perfectly, so I don't disrupt a lot of those stem cells, and it has very little surface area to heal versus if I try to cut it, then it's a little more unnatural. It may not heal as well as if I just wiggle it off. And so that's the fun part, is playing with these succulents and seeing how easily these leaves will wiggle off.
Gail, you have your hand up.
I do. I'm wondering about spurge. The ones I have out front have gorgeous yellow flowers on them, have had throughout the summer. Now they're beginning to turn brown. Should I clip off the brown parts and just wait till next bloom period?
You know what I tend to do, because I'm not an expert in the spurge. I like to take a picture of it with like Plant ID or an app, and then I sort of Google it and what is the best way to care for it, to prune it.
Okay.
Because each one is different.
It's the big yellow one you had a picture of. It's okay.
Yeah, that one, because I didn't want the spurge. So I found that those tended to die down in the fall.
Okay.
So I just cut them off and towards the base, and then it just came back the next year.
Okay. So I'll wait a little while. Thank you very much. And it was a very helpful presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Extremely helpful.
Thank you. Well, your group, you have such an amazing group of Master Gardeners out there, and the fair, what you did at the fair, but also your garden. I was just so in awe and blown away at how beautiful it is, how well labeled, how informative. And, I recommend, if anyone wants to see a great garden, that's the one to go and see. So thank you so much for providing that model to all of us.
Laurie, you seem to have a lot of clay pots. Do you really recommend clay for some of the larger, more permanent presentations?
The reason why I had clay was I just wanted a standard look at my son's wedding, and they were the cheapest one, some of the cheapest things I could find online. The clay pots, they will dry out more quickly, which is great for succulents. What I did find, however, was when you have the clay pot base, I found that when they were inside, I had some on my kitchen table, I didn't realize how porous they are. And so the base didn't retain the water. And so I found it was starting to get moldy underneath on my table. So I learned a lesson that if I am going to use the clay pots, I need to have a plate underneath it, or I need to spray some sort of protective coating so the water doesn't go through. But otherwise, they're great because the succulents like the soil to dry out. Clay pots will dry out quite easily. But I just tend to use whatever containers I find. And I use a lot of the containers because I grow the vegetables, starts and that sort of thing. So I've got a lot of little containers lying around. So unless I have something that I really want to display, I just use whatever I can find. If I find something without holes in the bottom, and that's best because the water will drain out. If I have a container without holes, then I just make sure that I don't overwater. Or I put another pot, I plant it in a pot with a drainage hole and put it in the container, a more beautiful container. But the main thing is not to overwater and let those roots sit in soggy soil.
You start bringing yours in September.
I'll bring them in when I'm taking a look and I see that the temperature is going to be going below 40 at night, or the rains are coming. Because again, the thing that's going to be that will kill them the best or the quickest is too much rain. So like mine are sitting outside now. If I find I don't have time to bring them in and I see there's going to be several days of rain, sometimes I'll just throw a plastic over them during that rainy spell. But yeah, I like to bring them in before the cold and the rain. If they're the ones that love the warm climates. If they're the stone crop sedum, autumn joy, that sort of thing, they're great. They're happy as perennials outdoors in our climate.
Other questions, comments for Laurie? Let's get our succulent on. Laurie, thank you so very much. This has really been super, and because again, this is it's amazing how much you've shared in this past hour. That is it's we don't spend enough time talking about succulents, do we?
They're fun, they're easy. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Okay. Thank you, Laurie, and thank you, everyone. So, a quick reminder here. I'm just going to go back to it, to make sure that we're making sure that we know what we're doing here. It's a busy month here in August, right? So we've got opportunities for a board meeting coming up in an hour, 1 o'clock, an hour and a half, 90 minutes from now, 1 o'clock. Plant clinics this week, the Pacific County Fair, Ocean Shores to clean out the month, at the plant clinic there. So lots of things going on. And of course, reminder again for our dedication on September 2nd. Okay. Any last words for the good of the order? Otherwise, we'll see you all at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.